Hello, everyone, and thank you, first of all, Rabbi and Cantor, for the beautiful service, and we were very honored to have the mayor with us this evening. Shabbat Shalom, on behalf of the Dorothy Serrata Social Justice Committee. Let me get my papers all set up here. Social justice is the unifying mandate of Reform Judaism, central to who we are and what we do in contributing to Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, through direct service, tzedakah, righteous giving, and advocacy. There is an 8-foot sculpture here on campus on the brown patio called Keepers of the Flame. It was dedicated to Rabbi Neret in 1982. It depicts 3 human figures with flames emerging from their hands, symbolic of the light of God's presence as they keep the light shining through actions respectful of our honored traditions and obligations. Temple Israel history is rich with commitment to keeping the light of Tikkun Olam shining through selfless acts of righteousness by many in so many different ways. Dozens of congregants and clergy emerge from the pages of that history. It's important to know those people, to learn from them. We cannot possibly honor everyone who has made important contributions, but we can call the names of 12 individuals who did something special to serve as role models for our Temple Israel family. Each did so in their own compassionate way, some behind the scenes and others front and center. Their stories show us how we can help repair the world with intention and with purpose. In our centennial year, we honor Keepers of the Flame, who not only did what's right and made us proud, but whose examples light our paths into the future. They, in turn, tonight honor us, honor Temple Israel, by allowing us to call their names, share their stories, and be inspired to write our own. And that's what we're doing here tonight. Now, this is no ordinary award show. We did hope we could be here together and celebrate this event in person. So here's Plan B. We have prepared, meaning that Mark Nedlin has prepared, a PowerPoint with photos, collage of news articles, and video, if we had them, to try to show the essence of the people whose names we're calling. And at the end of that little segment, we will end with a tribute that will be spoken live by one of our congregants. So there are a lot of moving parts. At the end, you can show your appreciation and your heartfelt thoughts about these people by either writing something in the chat or by doing this. But please, I beg you to stay muted, because some of our videos and archival things here are not of the highest quality, so we have to have total silence so we can hear them well. There will be a collective presentation to the honorees near the end of the evening made by Mark Nedlin. Also, I am very happy to tell you that these written tributes, plus writings about tzedakah and our social justice programs, are being compiled as we speak, thank you, Fran Levy, into a 24-page social justice handbook, which will be online next week or so, and about 2 weeks later, the hard copy will be arriving at the homes of all of our congregation. So there's no need to take notes. We begin the evening by honoring Dorothy Serrata, not just because our committee is named after her, although conversely, when you think about it, what she has done in the name of social justice, her contribution to this temple and to the community and the nation, actually, in many cases, span over 50 years. Over 50 years. That's half the life of this synagogue. Her three sons graciously sent us a video testimonies about their mother. Beautiful testimonies. And as they know, and as I ask, I was looking everywhere to see, couldn't we find a video clip, an audio clip, something, so that we could bring Dorothy Serrata alive one more time here at Temple Israel, so that people could know her better. So as we grappled with how we were going to put this together, what we're going to do with the 3 video testimonies, we had a late submission from Rabbi Google. And about 1 week ago, we did find an audio tape of Dorothy Serrata. It was part of an oral history project at FIU done by the students. Thank you, Spencer Salzberg. Thank you so much. He is the student who did that interview, and we were able to get it. It's about a 12-minute piece, and it's only voice, of course. So we cut it in half, and we added video to what she was talking about, so we could have one more lesson from Dorothy Serrata. Now, what I want to say is that what she is talking about is not happy talk. It's a very serious depiction of segregation and discrimination when she was a child. It's very vivid, and the videos are very vivid, but we thought it was important to show that tonight, to show you. Some of us know about those times, some of us have read about it, a few of us have lived it, but really the reality is we don't know it as we should know it. And when you think about it also, Dorothy Serrata came to Miami in 1925. She was 4 years old. And she's talking about being a young child. So that's about, as we celebrate our 100th year, that's about 100 years ago. So we can think now, we can see what it was like living in parts of Miami 100 years ago. So tonight we are going to present the video from Rabbi Ike Serrata. The other 2 video, and I must say that Ike sent his in first. So the other 2 videos will be archived along with the tape of this presentation, so we can see them another time. So here is Ike Serrata, Dorothy Serrata, and after that I will be honored to say a few words about Dorothy Serrata.
I'm Rabbi Ike Serrata. Thank you to Temple Israel for the opportunity to say a few words about my mother, Dorothy L. Serrata, and indirectly about her greatest supporter and cheerleader, my father, Dr. Maurice Serrata. As their youngest child, before I was old enough to go to school, Mom schlepped me to whatever meeting she was going to, so that a generation of social justice leaders remember me as Mom's little sidekick, who would literally sit at her feet, coloring on endless reams of paper while she planned to change the world. She was passing the mantle to me before I could even walk. Mom not only served for more than 2 decades as a member of the Reform Movement Social Action Commission, she was, of course, a perennial member and long-tenured chair of Temple Israel's Social Action Committee. She also served on and chaired the Miami Beach Commission on the Status of Women, which not only did great work on the rights of women, but was also instrumental in the preservation and landmarking of the Art Deco district of South Beach, a legacy that has been of artistic and financial benefit to the city for decades. At an age when many people were retired, Mom thought nothing of driving down to the Chrome Avenue Detention Center, using her rudimentary high school French to teach English as a second language to Haitian detainees and help them in their struggle for asylum. It was often heartbreaking work, but there's no doubt that she saved some lives doing it. There are so many stories and anecdotes, too many to tell. So just one more. In their 80s, Mom and Dad flew up to Chicago often to visit me, my wife, and their grandchildren, of course. One spring, and mind you, spring in Chicago is still wintry, I took them and the whole family to participate in the labor action at a downtown hotel. Mom and Dad and 3 of their grandkids joined the picket line carrying signs meeting the striking workers, and Mom shouted herself hoarse, as she often did, joining in the chants for solidarity. At the end of the vacation, Mom and Dad agreed that this was the very best moment of their trip. Nothing made them happier than to see that the struggle for human rights, which was so important in their lives, would continue in their children and grandchildren. They would both be so proud of the professional and volunteer work that their grandchildren are doing now. Mom was an outspoken advocate for turning the world that is into the world that ought to be. Outspoken as she was, she would be far too modest to accept the honor of having the Temple Israel Social Justice Forum named in her honor. But she was synonymous with social justice at Temple Israel for half a century, and I'm thankful to Temple Israel tonight and always for an honor that she richly deserved.
I was born in Baltimore, but I've lived in Miami so long that I was brought down here. I was really little. I don't remember anywhere else. My grandparents, however, lived in Europe, in Poland, Russia. And my own parents were brought from there when they were so little that they didn't remember Europe either. They grew up with accents just like mine. They didn't know anything but the deep south of the United States. And I'm the same. I didn't know anything but Miami my growing up years. It was very, very segregated. Our school was white, and we didn't know any black children to play with. You didn't even know they existed. The only black people you ever saw was somebody that came to the house maybe once a week, or if you had some money, maybe every day. But other than that, you didn't know them any other way. My parents were under the impression, although we were and our rabbi taught and we knew from the Bible, everybody's the same, we've all got one Father. But they still had learned as little children. Don't forget, they were born 20 years after the Civil War. They had learned that those other people may not really be people. They might be some species of animal. You know, they weren't the same as us. That's the way they grew up. And that's the way it looked like to me in the beginning. I thought that's the way it was supposed to be when I was really little. Well, the community, as I told you, was very separate. The first inkling that I had, right, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And from then on, I felt different about it and wanted to do things. This was Temple Israel in Miami, Northeast 19th Street. And our rabbi at the time was telling people who considered themselves lily white Southerners, don't you know that you and your brothers and sisters are all the same people with the same Father God? We heard that every service, and we lived it all our lives. Temple Israel had the first Head Start program in Miami for the little children came to our temple for their studying. Let me tell you that I have seen the Ku Klux March. The Ku Klux Klan. Do you kids know what that is? The Ku Klux Klan, their sworn idea was that white Christian are the only people who really deserved to live on the earth. And the rest of them, if they did anything wrong, you were supposed to punish them. And punishment included killing and sometimes having fun with them first. I remember seeing a parade go by with those people. They had on the sheets and they had on the hats. To see of them was their eyes. My parents were with me in that parade side, you know, it was Armistice Day or something, but they were part of it. And my parents said, don't look at him. Don't even look at him, Dorothy. Turn your head away. But I wanted to see. And I looked at him, and you could see their eyes. They looked like the mailman or some teacher that you had in school. They didn't look different. And I was trying to say, well, they're not such bad people. But years later, then I found out. This I heard from somebody who grew up black, and she was telling us about when she was little, about the same age as me. Her parents would, maybe a maid in a white person's house, they'd be ironing the sheets for these people with costumes that they wore, the pointy hats and the eyes. And in her house, when the maid knew she'd gone to the white person's house, she ironed the sheets. She came home, told the rest of the family, stay indoors tonight. They're going to march. Stay inside. So everybody stayed inside, and the Ku Kluxers came by in their sheets and their cars, and they're prancing around, you know. At one point there, this woman was telling me, her name's Dorothy, too. She's one of the local historians. She said one of the dogs went out on their porch and barked. And her little brother went out to get the dog, you know. Guys driving by in the car, they heard the dog bark. Somebody pulled out a gun and shot him, shot the dog. Kid was out there, too. He could just about hit the kid. He didn't care. Well, at the time, you know, when I was a kid, I thought, well, we got our beach, they got their beach. Theirs is as nice as ours. Well, it not only wasn't as nice, so it was ocean is ocean wherever you are. But I just heard today that I didn't realize it. Should have known the causeway didn't come till later. They wanted to go swimming. They had to go get on a boat to get to the beach. The rest of us, in that first year when we lived in Miami, we could walk to the beach. We lived in Miami Beach, and the ocean was on one side, and the bay was on the other. Come out of our house, you could see the ocean over here, and you could see the bay over there. There weren't any hotels or anything. But we did get the schools desegregated. It was partly things we were doing. I spoke for it over the years, worked for it, and had people object to not doing it. I'm glad we've gotten to this point with it. I'd like to see it go even further.
Dorothy Serrata's collective accomplishments over 50 years of service, locally and nationally, cannot be truly measured, but her impact on Temple Israel has been enormous. As a fearless voice for the disenfranchised and against injustice, she was simply a force to be reckoned with, and she is still, as you have seen, our teacher. Dorothy arrived in Miami Beach with her family from Baltimore in 1925 at the age of 4, and finally settled into social justice work in the mid-50s, quote, as soon as I was graduated from the first 10 years of married life, unquote. Then it was full speed ahead. It is important as we go forward to remember not just her deeds, but the issues she wrestled with all those years: civil and voting rights, opposition to the Vietnam War, proliferation of nuclear weapons, welfare of Soviet Jews, fairness for the Palestinians, equality for women, the radical right, Ethiopian resettlement, Black-Jewish relations, Haitian refugees, feeding the homeless, clothing for Jews in the former Soviet Union, and interfaith work. On a national level, there was the National Commission of Social Action of the now URJ, the Women and Minorities Task Force, which she served on for 28 years. On the home front, there was steadfast direction of the Social Justice Committee and ongoing community involvement. She headed PTAs and produced the first live education program on WLRN public television. Dorothy Serrata was the first woman to be elected to the Temple Israel Board of Trustees in her own right. We have heard in her own words how she was influenced by her faith and horrified by the realities of segregation, just as we are influenced by her example and horrified by the racism that hasn't gone away. Many, many have been inspired by her leadership and light, especially her 4 children and grandchildren, L'Ador Vador on a grand scale. In 2009, Temple Israel bestowed its highest social justice honor upon Dorothy Serrata by naming our Social Justice Committee after her, as enshrined in the synagogue's bylaws. We write and read her name almost daily. Tonight, we also say it loudly and proudly: Dorothy Serrata. Thank you, Dorothy Serrata. And yes, we still have a lot of work to do.
Our next honoree is Dr. Joan Bornstein. So while we're looking at these pictures, I want to wish you Shabbat Shalom and tell you I'm Diane Lindner, a member of the Dorothy Serrata Social Justice Committee. I'm honored to tell you about Dr. Joan Bornstein, with whom As it turns out, I was first privileged to work at the Easter Seal Society over 55 years ago. As a Brooklyn College student, Joan Bornstein wanted to be a rabbi. Told that women could not be rabbis, she pivoted to religious school education and eventually became a pioneer in developing special education programs, her caring innovations turning into lasting programs, including Head Start. Joan came to Miami in 1952 with her new husband, Jacob Bornstein, Temple Israel's first cantor. Raising 4 children as part of the TI family, she continued her own education. And while working toward advanced degrees in education and psychology, Easter Seals called on her to organize what became the first program for children with disabilities in Dade County. Joan earned 3 credits and went on to become affiliated with Easter Seals for almost 40 years, eventually becoming president and CEO. She also became immersed in the caring ways of Camp Louise for underprivileged children over a period of 50 years. After Cantor Bornstein's death, Joan married Ben Giller in 1993 and moved forward with remarkable purpose, leaving an indelible mark on her synagogue in numerous leadership positions and as a life member of Sisterhood. Special preschool programs for children were Joan Bornstein's calling card. Pilot Head Start classes took place at Temple Israel, her children remembering tagging along on field trips. Quote, witnessing my mother's complete devotion to their welfare has had a durable impact and has greatly informed my outlook on humanity. And this devotion was evident in all spheres of her life, unquote. Current Easter Seals programs, Early Childhood Development, Easter Seals Academy, Autism Demonstration School, Culinary Arts High School program, are also Joan Bornstein's legacy, testimony to her commitment to not allow children with disabilities to fall through the cracks, and to give those in her care the belief that they could rise to their best potential. Her amazing gifts to us all. Thank you, Joan Bornstein.
Temple Israel is incredible because it's made up of people that are so different from the next person that you can sit next to. And yet, I think, and I know that the people who come to Temple Israel have this feeling of being welcomed, and everybody was happy, and that happy entered into their homes, and it was just a wonderful place to live. What my mother told me, she said to me, remember, there are a lot of people here. When I first came to the temple, and she said, if you think of this, if you have something nice to say it twice. If you have something that is not nice, keep your mouth shut. And I think that was so simple, but so easy. And anytime I got upset, I remembered her saying that, and it eased some of the difficulties that I had in coming to a brand new shul with a brand new husband. And it all worked out.
Our next honoree is Annette Eisenberg.
I think the city of Miami is not going to receive all that they would get from another cable company. And more important, they were rated last amongst the list of people that had solicited the city of Miami. There has to be a reason for that. You just can't accept the fact that they're last and all of a sudden they become one. They could vote for this company, but we in the city of Miami have a right to say, well, we don't want it. One way is what we're doing on the recall petition. Another way is just to have a boycott and not hook up, period.
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Stanier-Schulman, a member of the Social Justice Committee, and I'm honored to tell you about Annette Eisenberg. Annette Eisenberg earned deep respect with her tireless commitment to the disadvantaged and insistence on bringing people together. As an activist and a visionary whose relentless efforts resulted in better schools and neighborhoods and much needed assistance for the homeless. Annette came to Miami in 1950 with her new husband, Morris, her partner in many endeavors. They worked in TV and radio sales and soon dove headfirst into many projects focused on the needs of the Edison area, Little River, Morningside, and downtown Miami. They would organize cleanups, form committees, and visit City Hall. As chairwoman of the Edison Park Neighborhood Development Program, Annette helped secure public funding for Edison High School and to revitalize the Edison Park area. She was a founding board member in 1996 of the Homeless Assistance Center, which later became the Chapman Partnership to Empower the Homeless. In Little Haiti, the city of Miami's Annette Eisenberg Community Center is a testament to her determination to provide a safe, clean gathering place for kids. In 1992, the Eisenbergs founded the Downtown Bay Forum to inform and engage people on timely issues. As president, Annette presided month after month, never mincing words or suffering fools gladly, and continuously holding elected officials responsible for their actions. A memory printed in the Jewish Journal upon her death had the headline, "Following the Legacies of Kennedy, Mandela, and Annette Eisenberg." We are honoring her this evening for the direct and lasting impact she made over a lifetime of fierce activism. Thank you, Annette Eisenberg.
Good evening. I'm Jacqueline Greenberg, president of the Temple Israel Congregation, and I'm honored to tell you about the Honorable William Layman of blessed memory. Long before William Layman was one of the most powerful men in the U.S. Congress, he had a causeway named after him. He was Alabama Bill from Selma, selling and financing used cars to Black Miami for customers who would not be served elsewhere. In 1939, he married his college sweetheart, Joan Feibelman, who had become a respected artist and sculptor in her own right, while her husband built a legendary career in public service. Bill had a can-do attitude and a penchant for doing good deeds for his fellow human beings, no matter what position he held. For 30 years and taught high school English part-time at Norland High. His passion for education and making a difference led to his election to the Dade County School Board, which he later chaired while fighting for mandatory busing, integrated schools, and the building of new schools like the Dunbar School in Overtown. In 1972, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, where he served 10 terms, sidestepping a bout of jaw cancer and forging ahead after a stroke. With a natural ability to reach across the aisle, Bill Layman won millions of dollars for Dade County Metro Mail and Metro Mover, prompting the late Carrie Meek to say, "Anyone who rides a bus or takes the train in this area, they owe it to Mr. Layman. And that's the way poor people get around, and he chose to make it a priority." Meanwhile, he also negotiated the release of political prisoners in Cuba and Argentina, supported Haitian refugees and the resettlement of Soviet Jews, and in 1984, smuggled an artificial heart valve to a sick teenager in Soviet Russia. William Layman was a visionary on racial issues and public transit with a tremendous clout in the halls of Congress, yet a humble man who occupied possibly the smallest office on Capitol Hill and became a breakfast regular at Jimmy's Diner on the Upper East Side here in Miami. His passing marked the end of a political career. They don't make them like they do anymore, like him anymore. Amen. Thank you, Congressman Lehman.
Florida Congressman William Lehman believes a solution has been found to the bonding problems faced by black contractors who are seeking to help build the billion-dollar Dade Rapid Transit System. Lehman announced today that County Manager Merritt Stierheim will recommend passage of a resolution on October 6th, asking the Metro Commission to allocate $10 million in Decade of Progress bond interest funds to ensure bonding for black contractors.
Now, nothing is certain. This is a proposal from the county manager that's being sent to the county commissioners. And I know it has the approval of the mayor because I've spoken to the mayor about it. In fact, it was his original idea, with the help of Warren Higgins, to use this accrued interest from the Decade of Progress bonds.
Metro Commissioner Barbara Carey says there's an excellent chance the measure will pass.
The rest of this ball game is left to the other commissioners, because you know you have the support of the mayor and you know you have the support of the vice mayor, and I don't think it's going to be any trouble getting the others to follow suit.
Within the next 3 months, nearly $100 million in rapid transit construction work will be underway in the black community. If the black contractors successfully get the proper bonding, then they can bid on the projects, thereby paving the way for other major jobs. C.T. Taylor, Channel 4 News, Miami.
My name is Judy Stopek, and I'd like to give you some more vital information about our Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava, after the video that will precede my comments.
Thank you so much to the people of this community who have shown the world what love, compassion, solidarity, dedication, commitment, perseverance really look like. We have shown the world. I am one proud county mayor. I am. If anything could bring light in this darkness, it's what we've seen in the spirit of everyone coming together, not just Bal Harbor and Surfside and the world, Surfside and the world. You know, Surfside strong, Surfside solidarity, Surfside that now represents for all of us how we care about each other. And our challenge going forward, in the midst of all the broken hearts, in the midst of all of the darkness and despair, is to take that light and to make it shine from here on forward. Let's not just be together in this tragedy. Let's be together for always. Siempre Surfside. That's what I hope our legacy will be.
Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava is first and foremost a public servant, a social worker, and an attorney by trade, with a long history of walking the talk of Tikkun Olam. Her election to public office is the result of years of relentless advocacy and community organizing on behalf of South Florida families. Her way of governing as a gracious, focused presence is infused with dedication to her Jewish values, as we have seen this evening. Daniela came from New York City armed with degrees from Yale and Columbia University, assuming positions of leadership with nonprofits and government agencies. Inspired by Hurricane Andrew recovery efforts, she started the Human Services Coalition in 1995, dedicated to the effective, efficient, and humane delivery of human services and the promotion of civic participation. She worked with, quote unquote, Imagine Miami to connect the dots at a high level while always being connected to the grassroots. HSC became known as Catalyst, Inc., continuing the pursuit of social and economic justice. Elected County Commissioner for District 8, She forged a path of shared visioning with her constituents. And this is a quote, "I spent a lifetime preparing people to be active citizens, and I came into government to make sure that they were heard," unquote. Since taking office, Mayor Cava has worked to protect the lives and livelihoods of 3 million residents during an ongoing pandemic, overseeing a metropolitan government with more than 28,000 employees and an annual budget of approximately $9 billion focused on building a stronger, more inclusive, more resilient Miami-Dade County. While the history of Mayor Cava's administration is still being written, there is no mistaking intention and purpose. The image of how she dealt with the rescue and grief during the Surfside tragedy is indelibly etched in the minds and hearts of people around the world. A Jewish mom who reminded us of our shared humanity and obligations to the greater good. Thank you, Mayor Cava.
Our next honoree is going to be Rabbi Stephen Jacobs.
I'm hoping that Rabbi Jacobs is still on. Talk about the influence that you inherited and you pushed forward when you were here with us as our first really young assistant rabbi whose interest was social action.
So I inherited, without knowing Rabbi Zwitman, the values that were inherent at Temple Israel. And in 1967, when I was ordained, it was the one position in the whole country that I wanted to come through. I wanted to come to the South. I was already involved with Jesse Jackson and marching with Martin Luther King and against the war. And when Rabbi Narrett interviewed me, it was just something that was very special and natural. And I also wanted to come and be with one of the great preachers in this country. And so Temple Israel had this great history. And I have to tell you, I've been a rabbi, I've been retired, but I've been a rabbi since 1967. And Temple Israel of Greater Miami is my shul, my values, my memories. And I must say, I've had a great career. I've had a marvelous career, but there's nothing in my career, and I've had some wonderful, I've been in 2 congregations, I've had a great rabbinate, but nothing can compare to the years that I spent at Temple Israel with the staff, with another rabbi who hasn't been mentioned, one of the gentle souls of the world, Rabbi Morris Graff, and with Eddie Cohen, and with Jacob Bornstein. You can only imagine this staff. There was no staff that ever worked every day, unless we had a funeral or something else. All of us had lunch together down the street, and the memories, a psychiatrist has written, when all is said and done, the only thing that we have that is truly ours are our memories. My memories, my great memories, and my children being born in Miami, my great memories are Temple Israel of Greater Miami. God bless you. Thank you for this very special Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. My name is Grace Wright Pazdra, and I'm a member of the Dorothy Serrata Social Justice Committee, and I'm honored to tell you about Rabbi Stephen Jacobs. Temple Israel has been blessed with a series of rabbis actively supportive of the LGBTQIA+ community. First in line, it was Assistant Rabbi Stephen B. Jacobs, who served our community from 1967 to 1970, and gave a groundbreaking sermon entitled The Religious Community and the Homosexual on February 16th, 1968. He opened the door. Taboo was on the table. Quote, "We in the church and the synagogue are on the spot. If we do not stand up and lead instead of being led, religion will lose its place in the development of mankind. How many of us seated right here know what it is to have the hatred of society eating into one man's soul? The homosexual wants the basic protection of the laws guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. They want to be treated as citizens, and they should be. Our responsibility in the religious community is to accept every human being and enrich his life. In saving one soul, it is as if we have saved the whole world. Ours is not to control and to legislate, but to understand," unquote. Rabbi Jacobs, a self-described street kid, was a dreamer who became a rabbi, constantly in the thick of good trouble. In Miami, he inspired Temple Israel youth to stand up for their values, working with Brenda and Robert Shapiro to create a popular Sunday high school program addressing social issues of the time. He moved on to Southern California, protesting the Vietnam War and then working for Vietnamese resettlement, offering a hand of peace and reconciliation after the Rodney King verdict, helping to free American POWs and assisting Soviet Jews, always fighting for civil and human rights 24/7. Rabbi Jacobs put Temple Israel on its path of not only welcoming and supporting the LGBTQIA+ community, but also providing a holy space for community, spiritual growth, and service. The same invitation extended to all of you who come through these doors. Love your neighbor with no exceptions, as you are. And then our next honoree is going to be Elizabeth Schwartz.
The U.S. Supreme Court decided the Windsor case, lifting the federal ban against marriage equality June 26, 2013. But certainly those of us mired in the movement in non-recognition states like Florida were very well aware that our fight for marriage equality was not yet won, because while the federal ban against marriage equality was lifted, DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, we still had these statewide bans, including in Florida. So it was super clear that we weren't going to win this battle in Tallahassee. We then looked at what a ballot measure might look like. It takes a long time. It costs a lot of money, and we didn't want to wait that long. So what's the only other option is to bring a court case. So we did the research, we chose plaintiffs, we partnered up with national and statewide organizations doing LGBT legal work, and brought that case. And it was a spectacular journey. The case that we made was a classic equal protection argument that you're discriminating against these folks, and it's unconstitutional to discriminate against this one class of people. Our case was brought in state court, and the ACLU case was brought in federal court. And so marriage equality came to the state of Florida in January 6, 2015, but it came to Miami-Dade January 5th, 2015. So for those of us who have come up in the movement here and have been working to eradicate the hatred that started here with Anita Bryant and her Save Our Children campaign and the Moral Majority and all those haters, it was really sweet that folks in Miami-Dade could marry first. Even if it was just a day before the rest of the state of Florida. It's a nice little
I'm going to continue our program, and I'm extremely honored to tell you all about Liz Schwartz. Lesbian and gay couples all around Florida are celebrating what they once thought to be impossible, their own wedding anniversaries, in part because of the relentless pursuit of justice by Elizabeth Schwartz, activist and attorney in that order. She is a nationally recognized advocate for the legal rights of the LGBTQIA+ community. Liz served as a co-counsel on the case challenging Florida's same-sex marriage ban brought by the National Center for Lesbian Rights, the NCLR, on behalf of 6 same-sex couples seeking the right to marry in the case Pareto versus Rubin, a lawsuit resulting in Miami-Dade Circuit Judge Sarah Zabel to finding that the ban was deprived same-sex couples due process and equal protection under the law. Judge Zabel had ordered Miami-Dade County to issue marriage licenses on January 5th, 2015. Just 2 hours later, the judge married 2 of the plaintiff couples in her chambers. Liz Schwartz has been in the forefront of providing crucial legal protections for the LGBTQIA+ community before and since the arrival of marriage equality, including name and gender marker changes for trans and non-binary individuals. She is the author of Before I Do, A Legal Guide to Marriage, Gay and Otherwise, The New Press 2016. In addition to her legal work, Liz is a founder of the Aqua Foundation for Women and has engaged with many organizations while still finding time to serve on the Board of Trustees for the Greater Miami Jewish Federation. The awards and honors bestowed upon her for her groundbreaking work are too numerous to list. Elizabeth Schwartz also served as counsel in several cases that helped overturn Florida's bigoted 1977 ban forbidding lesbians and gay men from adopting children, a core issue for family formation, the yearning to create loving families and live happily ever after just like anybody else. Liz has not only made it her business to seek LGBTQIA plus civil rights and equality, she has made it her mission. She is a true social justice warrior. Thank you, Liz.
Our next honoree is Norma Orovitz. Good evening. I am Kelly Bussey, Chair of the Racial Justice Ministry at Unity on the Bay. We have been collaborating with your Social Justice Committee on multiple initiatives. I am honored to tell you about Norma Orovitz and Faith in the City. Norma Orovitz, the first woman to be elected president of the Temple Israel Congregation, took a theme she developed for the Temple's 65th anniversary and turned it into a multi-pronged effort that brought together historic downtown and Overton churches to demonstrate faith in the future of the inner city. Faith in the City was born on April 2nd, 1989. As founding chair, Norma worked tirelessly with Rabbi Rex Perlmutter and members of the congregation to turn an idea into a working premise. Faith in the City brought congregations together at a time when they were facing multiple challenges after the 1980 McDuffie riots. The mission was to provide an anchor to an inner city environment undergoing sea change. Quote, while the varied houses of worship shared common bonds and challenges linked to inner city locations, each shared the joy of offering permanence, stability, and strength in the central city, unquote. Faith in the City, largely clergy-led, served as an umbrella for interfaith services and celebrations, multicultural and educational programs, and joint social action projects. It was the core of the Religious Committee for Miami's Centennial Celebration in 1996, with Norma Orovitz as co-chair. A 2001 program entitled The Ethics of Faith, Hope, and Federal Funding, a First Amendment Dilemma, exemplifies work done to face issues affecting the inner city. Rabbis Jeffrey Kahn and Mitch Chaffetz also took their leadership turns when called upon. For nearly 2 decades, Faith in the City widened Temple Israel's capacity for interfaith outreach and collaborations, hearkening back to the early efforts of Rabbi Jacob H. Kaplan to make the synagogue respected and relevant in the Miami community and to, quote, create a stronger whole to expand on each individual and social action agenda, to provide an additional interdenominational sensitizing body for enhanced community relations, unquote. This is a goal that must always be part of social justice at Temple Israel. Thank you, Norma Orovitz.
I'm Susie Sponder, a member of the Dorothy Serrata Social Justice Committee, and I'm honored to tell you about my friend, Dr. Barth Green. Barth Armand Green grew up in Chicago, inspired by parents and grandparents who started him on his way to becoming a world-renowned neurosurgeon with social justice as the uncompromising basis for his life's work. In January 2016, Dr. Green was named Executive Dean for Global Health and Community Service at the University of Miami. After serving 22 years as Miller School of Medicine Chairman of the Department of Neurological Surgery, he also served 7 years in the U.S. Army Reserve Medical Corps, where he reached the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. In 1985, Dr. Green co-founded the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis, an internationally acclaimed spinal cord injury and paralysis research center. He also co-founded Shake a Leg Miami, an adaptive water sports center which annually serves thousands of children and adults with physical, developmental, and economic challenges. He is a co-founder of Project Metashare for Haiti, launched in 1994 to help improve the health status of Haiti's citizens while playing a role in Haitian assistance relief. Dr. Green has received many honors and awards for his community service and humanitarian work, but nothing more important than passing the social justice torch to his 3 children, including Jenna, who has served with me as co-chair of the annual Chapman Christmas Eve Carnival Mitzvah celebration since 2002. Barth Green is leaving an indelible mark across the landscape of healing, reconnecting to the humanity of medicine by treating everyone the same, whether British royalty or someone living under a bridge. He honored us with his presence at our 2021 Yom Kippur Social Justice Hour, telling us his history and inspiring us to reach ever higher with compassion and purpose. It's up to us to make sure that every day of our lives we do a mitzvah. Yasher Koach. Thank you, Dr. Green.
Dr. Barth Green has been taking care of patients here in South Florida for decades, but today, the renowned surgeon performed his final surgery at Jackson Memorial Hospital, and now that he's retiring, his colleagues gave him a very befitting tribute. CBS 4's Francis Wang with the details.
Over 50 years and more than 15,000 surgeries later, Dr. Barth A. Green getting a standing ovation following his last, and he's taking in this moment.
I think the most important thing is what I was taught by one of my mentors here is the past is history, the future a mystery. Each day is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Dr. Green may be retiring from his surgical practice, but he'll still have a busy future serving as the executive dean for global health and community service at the University of Miami Health System.
I believe that the opportunity to help people will be even greater now than being tied up in the operating room 30, 40 hours a week.
And Dr. Green has many layers. He has many stories you wouldn't have imagined outside of the surgery room.
I was kidnapped in Medellin, Colombia by the Cali by the Medellin cartel. I was the doctor of the leader of China after the Cultural Revolution. His son was paralyzed. I was in Russia, being followed by the KGB. So I've had a very exciting life.
He certainly has. He also has quite the sense of humor.
I wouldn't change anything except my age.
At the core, Dr. Green is someone who cares deeply for his patients and always aims to connect medicine with humanity. In 2012, we were there with him in Haiti following his Project Metashare, which opened one of the only critical care hospitals in the country, saving countless lives.
I'm not sure that I changed the world, but I like to treat patients like family.
From JMH, I'm Francis Wang, CBS 4 News.
Hi, I'm Julie Scheingoltz, a member of the Dorothy Sirota Social Justice Committee, and I'm honored to tell you about Jack Schillinger. Jack Schillinger was a quiet force, serving Temple Israel and the greater community selflessly in so many ways, yet never seeking attention or fame. The 2014 United Cerebral Palsy of South Florida Lifetime Achievement Award followed 60 plus years of commitment to making life better for persons with disabilities on both the local and national levels. Jack graduated from the NYU School of Engineering and made his mark in business with the Keystone Joint System, which literally changed the Miami skyline. When their daughter Lynn was diagnosed with cerebral palsy in the late 1950s, Jack and his beloved wife Marjorie tackled the disease with everything they had. They were founding members of UCP South Florida, pivotal to the opening of assisted living facilities throughout the southeastern United States. Jack later became president of the national board of UCP. He steered the Bellows Fund for the acquisition of adaptive equipment for persons with handicaps who could not otherwise afford them. He chaired the New Horizons for Community-Bound Individuals, Inc., serving persons with developmental disabilities. In his later years, Jack raised funds for the Temple Israel Charles Held Jr. Fund to feed the hungry, and dedicated to underwriting meals at Chapman Partnership to empower the homeless. Jack Schillinger was a beacon of fiscal responsibility wrapped in love, who followed his social justice star relentlessly and with uncommon grace, despite the hurdle of macular degeneration. He was driven by a natural desire to help others less able to provide for themselves. Asked recently to describe Jack, Rabbi Mitch Shefitz said, "He was a saint, and that's all you need to know." Thank you so much, Jack Schillinger.
I'm Rabbi Amy Morrison, and I'm honored to tell you about Frank Kabak. Some remember Frank Kabak as the kind gentleman who attended Torah study, going around Joseph's tables handing out chocolates from a bag hanging on the handle of his walker. One Saturday, he had pulled a folded sheet of paper from inside pocket of his jacket and asked someone to read a story of an incident that happened on October the 16th, 1942, in Brest-Litovsk, Poland. It was a love story. On that day, an unknown Jewish woman named Dina approached him, asking for help at a time when, by law, anyone helping Jews would be killed. He put himself in grave danger with a scheme to help keep Dina safe, leading to marriage, a passport with a false Christian name, and the birth of their son, Elias. Frank changed his own last name to Kabak in honor of Dina's family, which all perished in the Holocaust. Then came some years in Cuba where Frank tried unsuccessfully to convert to Judaism. When the family finally moved to Miami, he visited Temple Israel on the advice of a friend and was converted under Rabbi Joseph R. Narrett in 1970, receiving his Hebrew name, Ephraim. After years of working in the garment industry, he quit his job to care for Dina, who had broken her hip. In his memoir, The Matchmaker and the Miracle, How We Deceived the Nazis, he wrote, "On July 8th, 2011, she passed away. I miss her very much. She was the first and only woman in my life, and my love for her is forever." It is a love story. The word that comes to mind when we think of Frank Kabak is righteous, a righteous man who led a life wrapped in Jewish values. On that day many years ago in Poland, he performed the greatest mitzvah of all. He saved a life. Thank you, Frank Kabak.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you for all the readers. We have one more honoree at the moment, but before we do that, I would like to announce that the task force, the Centennial Task Force and the Dorothy Serrata Social Justice Committee are presenting each and every one of these honorees alive and in the ones that are in memory, a brick in our brown patio. Each of them will be getting a special centennial brick that will be unveiled during our centennial weekend, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. All these amazing bricks have been sponsored and donated by Betty and Leslie Eisenberg in memory of his mother, Annette Eisenberg, and we thank him profusely. Thank you all. I'd like to now give you Paula Xanthropoulou, who will tell us about our next honoree and end the evening. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. And before I bring forth our last honoree, I do have to thank a few people. First of all, thank you to the Social Justice Committee for their part tonight and their good work always. To the Centennial Task Force and especially its chair, Mark Nedlin. To the TI Communications team, Rachel Fabricant, Fran Levy, and Jason Weeks. Our Executive Director, Sherry Dabowski. Isabel Montoto, Brian Kellert, and Maria Ayerbi. And special thanks to Rabbi Morrison for her steadfast support of and participation in our social justice programs. Thank you, Rabbi. I would also like to thank all the honorees and their families and everyone who was able to show up tonight. And the children of the honorees. I had the special pleasure of connecting with the children of all the honorees that we honored posthumously, and to get their input and their tributes to their parents that we used in some of our tributes. And I just wanted to say that most of you grew up here at Temple Israel, And even if you belong to another synagogue today, you will always be members of the Temple Israel family. So, it's my pleasure to bring forward our last honoree, Ruth Greenfield, Dr. Ruth Greenfield. I'm going to speak first, and then we're going to have the video second, because she is going to play us out, if you will. The most amazing truth about Ruth Greenfield is that at 98 years young, she continues to spread her light, opening her home to causes dear to her heart and creating musical happenings along the way. Her joyful, generous ways belie the fact that in 1951, she went against the tide of segregation at great personal risk to found the Fine Arts Conservatory, the first integrated school of arts in Florida. In 1949, Ruth married Arnold Greenfield in Paris, where she studied with Nadia Boulanger and marveled at the comfort of mixed races living in harmony. Returning to Miami, she assumed numerous responsibilities to create or direct programs that enhanced cultural life. They included the Lunchtime Lively Art Series, providing free concerts downtown for 18 years, and the Lively Word, the precursor of the Miami International Book Fair. All under the auspices of the Miami-Dade College, where she was professor and chair of the music and piano departments. In 1976, Ruth received the first Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Miami School of Music. The many honors, boards, and recognitions for her work pale in comparison to the gratitude of the children for whom she opened doors and horizons from 1951 through 1978 at the school located first on Northwest 2nd Avenue in Overtown and later in Liberty City. In the midst of racial segregation, the Fine Arts Conservatory offered small group and private lessons by university faculty in music, art, dance, drama, and music theory at minimal cost to children of all races, mindful only of their abilities and interest in the arts. The children of Garth Reeves, Carrie Meek, and Cy Gelber studied together there. It was a revolution. The life of Ruth Greenfield has been memorialized in the 2013 feature documentary, Instruments of Change, directed by Steve Waxman, which premiered in the rededicated Ruth W. Greenfield Auditorium at Miami-Dade College. Nothing, however, compares to the effect of her beautiful neshama in real time. We love you, Ruth Greenfield.
For someone in Miami in the 1950s to try to implement a program where blacks are brought into the arts in a public way, not to mention with white people as well, was unheard of and very risky.
Who was to say, because we were African Americans, that we could be exempt from the fine arts?
The Fine Arts Conservatory broke all the barriers.
They wanted to see you succeed, and I thought that was one of the best things that happened to me since I was born.
The conservatory was this island of integration.
The Fine Arts Conservatory became my second home.
White and black teachers working together with white and black kids in the early 1950s is unprecedented.
We didn't know that we were different, but we definitely knew that we were special because that's what we were taught.
My inspiration for the Fine Arts Conservatory really originated in Paris. I went to Paris in the summer of 1949 to study at the Fontainebleau. I studied with Nadia Boulanger, who taught Aaron Copland, George Gershwin, and even me. I noticed that there was no segregation there. And after Arnold, my husband, and I returned from Paris, we had a different view of sociability. And when we came back and saw there was so much regulation of the races being separated, I knew that I couldn't teach the way I had taught before in Miami, that I had to open it up to anyone who was gifted, no matter what economy they were in or what their race was.
My mother was a rabid integrationist. My mother was on a mission, and her mission was to bring music and art and dance to South Florida, but to bring it to everyone, not just white people.
The Fine Arts Conservatory that was started by Ruth Greenfield in 1951 was a blessing to this town. In fact, a blessing to the country, because here was a white woman who would come into a black neighborhood and teach black children how to sing and dance and emote and things like that. And during those days, you know, people did not accept that. Segregation was rough.
Black people could not vote without fear of retribution, losing their jobs if they voted, or even worse. You could not attend public places if you were a black person, public beaches, parks, swimming pools were not open to blacks. You could not shop in some stores downtown without being subject to segregation. A black woman could not try on clothes at Bernines and other department stores here. Blacks could not hold certain jobs. They were not admitted to labor unions. The school system was very, very segregated.
Miami was a deep South city, as deep as you can get in terms of racial segregation. A segregation wall was built in the late 1930s that separated the black half of Northwest 12th Avenue, north of 62nd Street, from the white half. That was the Liberty Square, Liberty City half, to wall off the black people from the white people. A wall was erected as late as 1948 in Coconut Grove that bifurcates a block that separates the white half of the block from the black half of the block.
You wonder, you know, what you did. I mean, you must have done something wrong. And I asked my mother, well, what did we do? Why are we treated like this? And she can give me an answer. She said, you're treated like this because these are the laws, and you were treated like this because you were born a different color.
Any attempt in the 1950s to bring white students and black students into the same classroom setting for educational purposes, for any subject, much less music, would have been resisted heavily by the broader white community.
They now saw real threats to the end of this two-society South that they had. So they're even tougher about enforcing segregation. So Ruth was looked upon as a subversive, as a communist, as a troublemaker.
My parents paid dearly for it. My father's career was ruined to a great extent. My father had a law degree from Harvard and was really unable to get a job. Had to open his own firm and try and find clients. None of the big firms in Miami would take him because of the politics of my parents. We moved from this very privileged house on Miami Beach to the ghetto, essentially, to a home that was still in the family, that was had been abandoned for years. My mother even went against her own family. I think they were very afraid for what she was doing. They were afraid for her. They didn't understand it. Why go against the establishment?
I was blacklisted from every music organization in the city. Even the one where I had become an elected member at the University of Michigan. The local chapter didn't want me around.
Ruth grew up from the time she was a little girl until she was an adult as a downtown person. Her grandparents lived in the center city. Spring Gardens, one of the first suburbs just outside of downtown Miami. She was down there. Her dad was a downtown merchant. And she couldn't abide the fact that downtown, the heart of what was now a sprawling community, was dying that way. And she thought, hey, I can help reverse this. And she had this great gift of music, the great gift to organize people, a passion for doing positive things. She put all those together, and she created this Lunchtime Lively Art Series.
The Lunchtime Lively Arts brought a diversity of artistic and cultural experiences for people. So you heard the mainstream kinds of art, but you also heard new and emerging kinds of art. You explored avant-garde in dance and theater and in music.
My mother went from being scorned in the 1950s as this person who was forcing integration and music on everyone to someone who was adored and who was revered in a way because she was bringing music to everyone in Miami.
She wanted to create a little piece of Paris in Miami, and she was able to do it.
It's not fair to say of Miami that we did a lot more than others did, but I think that we helped with the splendor of sound.